All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 5. That is right, week number 5 of your 9489 class, which is your cultural heritage class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. James K. Austin, and what we are going to do this week is we are going to have a quick state of the course update, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about and try to get y'all interested in encouraging other people to do oral history projects through their local public library or through academic libraries where appropriate. And there are some things, and one of your readings this week is something that I'm going to refer to, and we're going to talk a little bit about it through that. I am hoping to keep this check-in video at 25 minutes. Let's see if I can do it 25 minutes or less, especially since you had a 40-minute check-in video last week. But there was more to talk about last week on that subject matter than there is this time around, because the things that I'm going to talk about, they kind of speak for themselves here. Anyway, having said that, let's get into that state of the course update first. Let's make me small here. So your site visits, your cultural heritage site visits or festival visits or whatever cultural heritage visit that you were supposed to do on your first paper that should have been done and turned in on this past Sunday. So if you have not done that, you still need to go ahead and do it. There will be probably a late penalty associated, but you still need to go ahead and do it, because better late than never, my people. All right. And outside of that, what's on the horizon is, well, first of all, we did have some recent announcements. First of all, that it's not optional to read the announcements. I do want that to be clear. You are required to read the announcements, but accessing the content within the announcements, that's optional. So, I think the most recent things that I put in, oh yeah, so since that last check-in video, I don't know if I got those. Anyway, all right, so let me talk about this really quick. Sorry, I probably should have paused through all of that. But yes, so I did put this call for papers regarding participatory heritage, and you have a prompt here. You can read over the prompt, but yeah, basically what they are trying to look at is we're dealing with austerity, folks. And when I say that we're dealing with austerity, what I mean is we are going to be dealing with situations where federal government and state governments and potentially even local governments are going to be trying to downsize services that they are going to be offering for the sake of keeping taxes at what they think that the tax base thinks is going to be palatable. And so things that are going to be on the chopping block will include some of our cultural heritage things that we thought for a long time may be funded through we thought that a lot of these things would be funded through government resources and that sort of thing, and that's not always going to be the case. There's going to be some downsizing, and part of that downsizing is going to come from probably people trying to act as though, especially now that we're in this quote-unquote anti-woke culture, I think that one of the things that you're going to see is that people are going to, for instance, look at maybe museums for African American heritage and history and that sort of thing, and they're going to be like, oh, they're actually trying to preach hate through that, and anti-whiteness through that, and they're anti-patriotic and all this sort of thing, and they're going to use that in order to say these things need to be defunded and come down and that sort of thing. I haven't seen the assault take place on those things as much as I was expecting, even though it has started to take place, but it hasn't taken place as much as I've been expecting. But I do think that we've got this current president in office until January of 2029, hopefully. And so, we have plenty of time for those sorts of initiatives to gain momentum under his leadership and under the vibe that he is kind of attaching to our country. So if you see things that are that you feel are at risk of being defunded and those sorts of things, I do encourage you, please put in a call, because it's really good. One thing I want you to realize is that it's really good to get published at the student level. There are going to be a lot of people graduating from library school, folks. And so one thing that will set you apart from other people who are graduating from library school is to get publications under your belt while you are still a student. Get poster sessions under your belt while you are still a student, that sort of thing. If you can manage to do that, then that is going to set you apart, because the majority are not doing that, okay? And this, again, if you're interested in this type of subject matter, this is a publication opportunity that you should follow up with. If you have questions, you can reach out to these editors. And then also, I would even say, if you want to collaborate with me, and that can be as simple as you writing up something, but then me, proofreading and doing a little bit of a peer review for you to improve things. The only caveat is if you want to partner with me, you do have to list me as a secondary author, and I need to be able to put that on my CV. You would be primary author. Now, I have seen, and I hate this, so please know that Dr. Jace is actually trying to be ethical here. I've seen situations where professors have done similar, offered similar, but then also because their names had clout and everything, they were like, oh, and also you need to make me the primary author. No, I'm not going to be the primary author on your work, okay? So, but you will have to be willing to list me as a secondary author if you want to collaborate with me and want to take the lead on something, but want me to assist you with that, okay? So be thinking about that. The proposals abstracts are due on March the 1st, so you don't have that much time. They may extend this deadline depending on how many people they get submitting things. So I actually do hope that they'll extend it because I am interested in doing something, but I haven't figured out exactly what I want to do yet, but this is up my wheelhouse. So I am hoping that I can do something. Okay, so with all of that said, yeah, this is a call for papers and that sort of thing. And yeah, read it and see if you might have something that you are able to contribute. If you want to know whether or not something might be a good idea, again, you can reach out to me and I will give you my feedback on that. All right, other things that you need to be aware of as far as state of the course. We will have our second sync session right at the beginning of the month, March the 3rd, which is a Tuesday. We will be hosting Stuart Hines, and he's the founder of GLAMO, which is the Gay and Lesbian Archive of Mid-America, and there's some interesting stuff going on with that. Actually, GLAMO would be a perfect example of you might even get some ideas related to that call for papers from that GLAMO presentation, but I will also say that unfortunately, again, they would need to extend the deadline, which again, they might. Deadlines get extended in this field all the time. But in order for you to glean some ideas from that presentation, they would need to extend it past March 1st, but they probably will. I think there's a good chance that it gets extended into April or something like that. So we'll see. Just keep your eyes peeled. If it gets extended and I find out, I will let you know. All right. So that is something to be aware of. But other than that, you pretty much just have straight discussion board posts and that sort of thing, reading and discussion board posts. You don't really have another assignment that diverges off of the discussion boards until the end of March, March the 30th, which will be your mini interview with a cultural heritage worker. But be thinking of who you're going to want to do that interview with. Now, I did get a very good question about this, and I'm going to go ahead and answer that question right now. You are not obligated to stick with just the questions in this assignment. So actually in the assignment prompt, so actually I'm going to go in there. This is one of the few times where I do allow for you can do a Q&A. You can do a Q&A. Typically I like essays because Q&As are lazy and people don't want to read them. But in something like this, which is basically almost kind of like a blog entry, yeah, you can do the Q&A. That's perfectly fine. But the question that came in from one of your classmates was whether or not you were limited to just these questions. So these are the questions here, the 5 questions here. If you want to do more than just those 5 questions, that is perfectly fine, especially if the person that you are interviewing is willing to go beyond those 5 questions, okay? So yes, that is absolutely fine, and I'm glad I got that question. All right. But yes, and again, so you can, that's going to be a pretty simple assignment, but be thinking of who you might want to interview for that. And then don't forget that there's going to be a major paper due in the middle of April, so it's not going to come too long after that, okay? And that's going to be your 4 Heritages paper. All right, let me think if there is anything else. There is going to be a midterm, but the midterm, actually, let me pause and look at the date of the midterm because I forgot. Okay, so the midterm is also in April the 5th specifically. It's going to be open book, it's going to be easy, and it's going to be worth 4 points. So that is going to be pretty back to back there. Yes, you do have a while before this assignment because March 30th is over a month away, but you're going to have the mini interview followed by the midterm quiz right almost back to back, March 30th, April 5th. But again, this will be open book and very easy. And then right after that, you're going to have that Four Heritages paper on April the 12th. So just be thinking, and I know that that's a lot coming at you right at the end of March / beginning of April. But what I want you all to realize is I couldn't really move these things up earlier because you do need to get your readings and modules in so that you have a broader base of what even is considered a cultural heritage worker and what would be considered cultural heritages for this paper, okay? But you do have some guidance there. Again, these assignments aren't going to take you long. The paper may take you long, so you may want to get your bearings on the paper starting maybe even in the middle of March. But I will say the midterm quiz is going to take you at the most 10 minutes. It's really not that hard, folks, and it's open book. It's going to take you 10 minutes at the most to do this. And then if you just do send somebody the questions and get the answers, then this assignment also is not going to take you that long because you're just basically sending them out something, waiting for them to return it. And then you just copy and paste your Q&A into the discussion board prompt, okay? All right, so these things aren't going to take that long, so don't stress out about them. But yeah, your paper may take a little longer. All right, let me go back out here. Okay, so there's not too much more to say about state of the course except that I do want it to be clear that I would say that this is the last week of the introductory material. Again, I told you toward the beginning. Gosh, I hate this webcam. I told you all before toward the beginning that there are 5 weeks of introductory material. This is week 5, and then after that, I think things start to get a little more fun. You'll have the music module next week. Students tend to enjoy that, and then from there we will go into individualized topics that aren't so broad. And I think that students really start to enjoy things once we get into the individualized topic. I know that was gross. Individualized topics. As you get older, that's going to happen more and more. So for those of you who are in your 20s and 30s, just wait. All right. But yeah, excuse me, and I'm sorry. And yeah. Okay. So those are the main things. Yeah. I look forward to getting into week 6 and beyond with you all because, again, that's when things really start to get fun. But it looks like a lot of you are interacting with the course content in an enjoyable way even now. So I am pleased with that as well. So our topic this week is intangible cultural heritage. And now what I am going to do is shift gears and talk about oral history is do-it-yourself oral history is basically that we are seeing more and more libraries get into. So pause. All right, so what I want to do now, we are shifting out of the state of the course update and we are going into the other stuff that I talk about in my check-in videos. And what I wanted to talk about this time around was, and this is actually on topic with this week's subject matter because we're talking about intangible cultural heritage in this module for week 5. And one of the things that is part of the whole intangible cultural heritage umbrella is oral histories. And one thing that a lot of public libraries are getting in the game on right now, and I'm so thankful for this, is a lot of public libraries are getting into the game of allowing people to check out oral history kits. And so, one of the problems though is that there isn't really specific branding that goes on throughout the country, and that would actually be really helpful. Let's focus on Missouri first because that is where a lot of you are, and that's also the state that I work for, so that helps. So yes, as far as libraries with oral history kits, you will see you've got Mid-Continent here, but then also St. Louis City Public, Charles County, University City Public, Charles City County, St. Joseph. There are a lot of public libraries. I know this is an AI overview, but there are links that you can follow to find this stuff as well, because I don't rely on Google AI. But yeah, what these public libraries are doing is they are allowing people to, and this is one of your, the page for this from my local library, which is Mid-Continent Public Library. You will see information on how to get started with, or vaguely how this is done. You'll see some vague information on how this is done in one of your required readings, because the Tell Me a Story oral history program is one of the things that I have you all read about in this week's module. But, and this is new. I believe that Mid-Continent just started this in the summer of 2025. So this wasn't even something that was available for me to talk about with my spring 2025 cultural heritage class. So you're the first ones that are getting this knowledge right here. But what you are able to do is they give you instructions. These kits come with instructions, and then you can also register for classes with Mid-Continent, and there are probably other public libraries that offer classes so that you can kind of get started with knowing what to look for and knowing how to actually do a high quality oral history. But then they've got the Tell Me a Story oral history kits, and they come with directions and a bunch of other stuff. And these things can be checked out, so a kit can be checked out. There are 30, Mid-Continent has quite a bit within the system, 36 copies of which 11 are available now, and these are awesome. And basically what you can do is, I'm going to read this here. Tell Me a Story oral history kits check out like a book and include everything needed to record a quality oral history at home. Each kit comes with a recorder, release forms, which is important because you want to record these oral histories and make them accessible. So release forms, and in order to do that, you need the people's permission that are speaking in the oral history, instructions for use, and question prompts. Participants in the Tell Me a Story program will receive their choice of a CD or flash drive with their recording free of charge. Participants also have the option of having their recording included in the Midwest Genealogy Center's online archive, which is really cool. And different public libraries have different options and that sort of thing. You'll need to check with your local public library for what you can do exactly. But I'm hoping that a lot of libraries just end up following in Mid-Continent's footsteps. But I would say that this is very important because there's so much oral history that gets lost, and this more than ever is going to give us an opportunity to basically, like, if it were up to me, I would even, like, if I would make this my full-time job if I could, and if it could compete with whatever salary I'm making here. But I would love to just go to nursing homes with one of these kits, having the elderly people sign, and then asking them what happened here. What did you see during your life? And letting them tell the story. But that's the thing. There is so much history that is lost every time somebody dies. Your grandparents knew so many things. They saw so many things. And if you're like me and all your grandparents have passed, then, you know, a lot of what they saw is forever lost to history if it wasn't documented anywhere. Most of what they saw wasn't documented anywhere. But this is a chance to get that type of knowledge. If you have parents now and you have one of these kits, if your parents are elderly or if your grandparents are still with you, then by all means, I would say that this would be a great thing for you to do and for you to encourage other people to do, is to have them record these oral histories, have them learn these things, not learn these things, have them say these things that happen, these real experiences, these things that happen to people. There is these people, basically everybody is a living archive, and when they die, that archive gets destroyed, you know? That's from an African proverb. And there's just so much truth to that, y'all. There's just so much truth to that. And so I would say don't even stop with yourselves. Encourage other people to do it, especially if you know that other people have unique stories. Like, for instance, one thing that if I get time, one thing that I hope to do is I hope to cover the Black history of Sweet Springs, Missouri, which is a small town on Interstate I-70. There is apparently some hidden Black history there, and I am hoping that I get the opportunity to go in at some point if I get the time. I'm hoping that I am able to go in there and just get that history, just record that history. There are a few Black residents still in town in Sweet Springs, and if I could take a kit and just get the oral history, ask them what it was like growing up in Sweet Springs and that sort of thing, that would be so awesome. But I would have to make the time to do it. And that's the thing. But, you know, it shouldn't be all on me when I've got so many other things going on within LIS. Other people are going to have to take this on, but that's where you can come in. You can tell your friends how important it is. If you come from a small town where there was only one Black family, or one Hispanic family, or one Asian family, or whatever, or if you came from an all-Black town that just had one white family, but you know those people and you know that they are still there and you can get that oral history, by all means, get that oral history. Convince somebody that, yes, get one of those kits, look at the instructions, and get that oral history, because those people have stories to tell. And there are just so many stories that, again, just get lost every time somebody dies. Thankfully, one thing I was pleased to find out, that one piece of history that did get recorded while I was in Horry County, South Carolina, which is where Myrtle Beach is, and that's where I was living prior to working at Coastal Carolina University, and that's where I was prior to getting this job here. But there was an incident in that you don't see hardly documented anywhere in print, because newspapers didn't really want to touch it like that. But there was an incident where the Ku Klux Klan had gone into a black nightclub. I'm sketchy on the actual details, but they had gone into a black nightclub in the Myrtle Beach area and tried to start trouble. And then it turned out that one of the, if I'm getting the story right, and again, it's been about 8 years since I heard this story, so I apologize, but if I'm getting the story right, what ended up happening was when police responded to that call, they actually shot one of the Klan members, and one of the Klan members ended up being a guy who was running for sheriff of that county. So things can get really deep, but you didn't see that in the newspaper archives, and that came out through oral histories, that came out through several black people who were around at the time, elderly black people who were around at the time, saying, yes, this happened. And when you had several people all saying it, and they were there and they witnessed it, and they had the differing perspectives and everything that you would expect, then it was like, oh yes, this really did happen. This isn't just folklore. There's something to this. So having said that, these are the types of things that you won't just get. You won't always get these stories if you're over reliant on what's documented in newspapers and letters and those sorts of things that we traditionally look at. Yes, the written record is very important and can be very authoritative, but there is just some knowledge out there that you will only get it if you speak to people and you let people just talk and you record. Okay. And I would even say that throughout this country, whether you're in the South or the Midwest or wherever, there were a lot of people who grew up poor and they did not know how to read, and that sort of, they didn't know how to write well or read well and that sort of thing. And so they weren't going to be the people who were going to document things through writing, but you sit down and talk to them and they have a whole lot of memory of these various things. And that, again, would have been lost to history if we were relying on the written word. But when you give these people the opportunity to speak, then that history gets documented and unearthed. So I am going to come back out here and say one thing that you may need to do, especially if you're trying to encourage people within your home community to do this sort of thing, you may need to reach out to the library and see if they have these sorts of kits. And unfortunately, again, the kits are branded under very different names. So you often hear them called, basically in Missouri, you often hear them just call oral history kits and that sort of thing, or my story kits or something like this. This is in Colorado, but tell me a story or my story, but oral history kits. That's the main thing. But then, of course, like my home state of North Carolina, where I'm from, they have to be different. So I was looking for this with North Carolina, and I couldn't find anything. And then finally, I finally came across this, and it turns out that North Carolina has to be all special with how they word things, and so they're calling it Archivist in a Backpack. But it's the same thing, but that branding isn't going to be as recognizable. Like if I'm in Missouri and somebody from North Carolina told me that they were doing Archivist in a Backpack work, I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? And it would be the exact same thing. So yes, one thing that I would recommend you do, look at the page. It's part of your assigned stuff anyway for this week, but look at the page from Mid-Continent that's right here. And if you are trying to see if there's something comparable to, or the page is actually here. If you're trying to see if there's something comparable in your state, in your local place, or somewhere that you care about, then what you might need to do is reach out to that library, but then also show them this. And then when they look this over, you can be like, hey, is there something like this where you are? And there can be a yes, no, maybe sort of thing go on. But again, I would have never known to look for Archivist in a Backpack, but that's what several of the libraries, public and academic, in the state of North Carolina are referring to this as. So there might be specific branding. I know I've got somebody in California. I know I've got people in Kansas and that sort of thing in this class. I've got somebody in Kentucky. So people all over. And so you have to look for the specific branding in your state. But I think that if you took this page, again, this page to the library with you, they would be able to discern, oh, yeah, we do have something like that, but we call it this. And then you can go from there. But encourage people to do this, folks, because we need this history and we need to preserve it. I am Dr. Jace, and losing this type of history when people dies is just such a disgrace. Don't let it happen. I'll see you in the discussion boards.